Welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, with your host, Mark Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields and academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Josh Buxbaum, former actor, businessman, and child advocate, is our guest today. Josh talks about his experiences in entertainment, business, and his passion to help young people enjoy a summer camp experience.
Hello and welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Great Success Education. I'm your host, Mark Hoberman. Today's guest is former child actor, now businessman and child advocate, Josh Buxbaum. Josh, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
My pleasure. The best thing about this, quite honestly, folks, is that I was a camp leader, and I first met Josh probably 30 or 31 years ago. So, Josh, before we get to some of the more important stuff, I have some memory questions for you from our camp days. I don't think you'll be able to answer one of them. Let me see. Where were we when a young girl asked for your autograph?
Oh, man. That I have no idea, but I'd be interested to know. It sounds like an interesting story.
What interesting me is that how level-headed you were, because you were not embarrassed, but you were like giggly when she asked, and not, I don't sign autographs. We were at a Broadway show. Now, what Broadway show, I can't tell you. You might remember what show the camp took us to, but I don't remember. But she asked for your autograph. Then everybody was so impressed. Oh my God, she asked for your autograph. Okay, but here's one you will get. Okay. What really happened the day you got a bloody mouth? You better remember this one.
I ran into a wall, right?
Yes. Okay, that's what
I'll tell you. I remember this.
I want the truth. Let me hear the truth.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I don't remember what I told you or what I told people, but I remember very clearly what this was. We were at a hotel, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, because we're old now, Mark. We may not remember everything, but so correct me. We're at a hotel and we went out, and I went into the counselor's room and I turned the thermostat up as high as I could. I turned it up to 100 and something because I thought it was funny when we came back.
Point.
His room was going to be 600 degrees. We came back. I guess I was looking at the thermostat and how hot it was or whatever, and I turned and I didn't know where I was in the room. I was so excited to tell everybody. I turned around and walked right into a wall. Does that sound about right? Because
we heard two stories. Now, if you're saying that's the truth, it's the truth.
It's the truth.
The other one was some stupid pillow fight story, which I wasn't buying. But what it's important, it's all about me. It has nothing to do with you. What happens to do with me is that you had something to do LA-wise the next day. And I had to make the call home saying, I was talking to Artie, the other guy, the leader, and I said, who's calling Josh's mother to tell the good news? How I was voted in for that job, I don't know. But your mother was a lovely woman, and laughing, and of course, I screwed the story. Maybe I lied and said it was a pillow fight. I don't remember.
I have a feeling you may have covered.
Could have maybe told that lie. But okay, so remember that.
I remember the panic. I remember the panic in your eyes.
Yeah, interesting. I was more injured than you were. Yeah,
because you're like, I'm responsible for this kid. This kid's got to be on TV tomorrow, and he's got a bloody mouth, and nobody's gonna, nobody's gonna take Josh's word for it. I got
absolutely. Not a good memory for me. But now, so talking about the time, acting and all that, let's start off talking about your time as an actor. Besides commercials, and I remember you were the singer on the My Buddy commercial, if I have that name right, and more. You had a role on TV's Alf. And how did that come about? That's a game changer. Commercials are huge, but being on Alf was a game changer. What were some of your experiences on that popular sitcom?
I was obviously lucky to get the opportunity to be on that show. It was kind of cool. As a kid, I was a fan of the show, so it was really cool. What was a big compliment is I had done enough work. I'd done a lot of theater work, and I had done some TV work also, but never something at that level. I had done some pilots that didn't take off. I had done some guest stars, but never something like that. And I recall they basically crafted the character for me because at the time my acting name was Josh Blake and the character's name was Jake. And so I thought that was really it was just a huge compliment as a kid to be a fan of a show and then be brought on, basically not even audition, just sort of like, we'd like to have you on the show. So that was just amazing. And it was an amazing time in my life and an amazing experience. I think when you're a kid doing something like that, there's a significant amount of pressure. When I look back, you kind of have to be an adult because there's billions of dollars riding on you. It seems fun, but in the back of your mind, this is all business, right? So I think I grew up a lot faster than most. And you may remember, just as a kid, I think I was probably a little different in the way I interacted with adults because I kind of grew up quickly. I mean, I don't know if you saw me amongst the others as sort of different in the way that I could hang, so to speak, but I always felt more comfortable with adults than people my own age, really, quite honestly.
Well, it's funny you should say that because, and I'm not saying this is how well-spoken you are now, but I can't say this about anybody else I've ever met. Talking to you now is 90% similar to talking to you as a 14-year-old. It really is. I would laugh and say, is this guy a 40-year-old? I mean, what the hell is going on here? Yeah. It was in your blood. Don't know if you remember this, but I don't know. I think you may have had surgery when you were younger. Maybe, I don't remember what it was, but Mom had told me that, he's had acting in his blood. He had the people laughing. You sang a commercial jingle when you woke up from surgery. Do you have any memory of that? Because it just speaks to, it was the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Oh my
and
God.
To show you what amazing life I have led, why would I remember that from 30 years ago? Because I've done nothing for 30 years, but think about all the wonderful things that I heard about Josh Blake and Josh Buxbaum. But it's funny because, yes, you were always mature, and we see bad things that happen to child actors, and it isn't always easy to give up the spotlight in anything, in business, but you gave up the spotlight. And at such a young age, you experienced stardom. What made you decide to leave acting and pursue other ventures?
I mean, the honest answer is things were stalling out. I moved to, one of the things my parents were adamant about was no matter how successful your career is, you're going to college. We'll let you do all of this stuff, but I don't want to hear about it. You're going to college. And so I kind of took a break. Came back, went to George Washington University, and I'm grateful that they made me go because it was the best 4 years of my life. I got to be a kid in a way, and get that out of my system, But afterwards, when I came back, it was hard to get back in. You lose 4 years in this business or in the entertainment business, and your resume is stale. People forget you quickly. So I moved out to Los Angeles right after college, and I did work. I mean, I did some guest stars on different shows, and it was a career, but it certainly wasn't even close to where I was when I stopped to go to college. And I think I reached a point where I was a little disheartened, and I sort of had this feeling like you're growing up, right? Like you're a grown up now. This doesn't feel comfortable. This feels scary. It's not reliable. And so when you're a kid, you don't care. You have it doesn't matter if you're working or not. You don't need it. When you're like starting out, on your career path, and you're like, well, every audition you're hanging your hat on. Maybe I'll get paid. Maybe I won't. You start to. I guess the honest answer is, I guess I didn't love it enough to fight for it. Right. I kind of came to the conclusion that I'd rather have some stability, and I've always been interested in business and in other ventures. So it wasn't like I thought to myself, "This is all I can do. I'm in trouble," right? So I made a conscious choice to say I'm pretty much done with this. And the funny story, the straw that broke the camel's back was I had an audition for it was like a NyQuil or some sort of nighttime sleeping medicine. It was a commercial, right? And commercial auditions are horrible because they're not rewarding. It's literally you're in a line of 400 people and you try and get the gig. But I remember driving there, and when I got there, I was sitting next to all these men, and they were in their 50s, and they were all in their pajamas because they were auditioning for this commercial. And I looked at them and I said, if I'm 50 years old and I have to put my pajamas on, send my kid on the bus, right, and get in my car and drive to a NyQuil commercial, it's not going to happen. Right. So I literally left. I called the commercial agent and I was like, I'm done. And she's like, what? Josh, you booked these? I said, no. I'm not going to be 50 in my pajamas. And she goes, what are you talking about? And I hung up. And to this day, they still laugh about it, these agents, because no one's ever fired them like that.
Right. Of course.
But anyway, yeah. So it just, I guess it wasn't clicking anymore. And so I decided to go on a new path. But yeah, I think to your point, losing the attention and the spotlight was challenging. Because you're used to being, like you said, at camp, at that age, you kind of get all the attention, right? Like when someone asks you for an autograph, everyone's like, whoa, who's this guy, right? All of a sudden, you're just back in the mix, right? And you have to accept your place in the mix. And I remember being a little entitled, being surprised when I go to a restaurant and they'd say you have to wait half an hour. And I'd be like, well, I used to, I used to get sat, you get back into the population, and it's challenging because you were used to being special and you're not, right? But I think it's a great life lesson.
I think that it's gold what you're giving us here, because to be honest, the whole show, Lighting the Educational Flame, is based on following your passion. And you're speaking to opposites. What I'm hearing now is to know when to unfollow what used to be your passion. And no one's ever spoken about that. We've had Madison Taylor Baez, who played young Selena on, I think, the Netflix show, and you could just see the spark in her eye that you had. And some people keep that spark forever, but the fact that you had something in education to fall back on, the fact that you met yourself at your own reality. Hey, I don't love this anymore, and I want to get out before I have to put my pajamas on to go out instead of to go to bed. So I think that's amazing. And let's flip now to years later. You're in LA, and now you're part of this company, and your co-founder, I think you became friendly with at camp. What was the genesis of your company, Web Purify?
So the co-founder, John Frager, was a good friend of mine since 6th or 7th grade. So we grew up together, and he did come to camp for a summer. He is 10 times smarter than me. He's very tech oriented. He's a developer. He's got a very he knows how to assess problems and address them in a technical way. And I've never had that skill. I'm more on the sales talking side, right? And he had developed a product for filtering text. So essentially, he recognized there was a need when people are submitting text, what we call user-generated content. Okay. So let's use UGC is something we use in the space that I work in a lot. And UGC is basically anything someone submits to the internet that's user-generated. So you go to a dating site, you submit your profile text or your image, right? Your profile picture. That's UGC. That's user-generated, and you're putting it on a platform on the web. He had developed this profanity filter to scan text and look for offensive language. He had even developed it by being clever enough to create a game where you try and come up with as many foul words as you can, and then you get a rating, like you're a drunk sailor or you're a school kid, right? And so in a way, he was training the models with this game, and that's how advanced. That's how his brain works. And me, from a business standpoint, I thought this is interesting, and I think there's a need. But to be honest, it also struck a chord in me. And this kind of dates back to the acting, that when I was a kid as an actor, you are exposed to this world of adults, and it's not always comfortable. And so I describe, and let me preface this by saying I was lucky enough, because I know there's some horror stories where people have had some bad experiences with adults as young actors or whatever, with really inappropriate things that may have happened. That's not the case. But I do remember a few cases where you got those little hairs that stand up on your neck. And so when you're a kid actor, you get a lot of fan mail, and the mail comes in, and it's not always comfortable. So it'll be from an older guy who's emailing. So why is this guy sending a letter to an 8-year-old, or a 10-year-old with pictures of himself? Not necessarily inappropriate, but right. Why is he writing to me, right? Or there'd be someone who would be in the studio audience for every recording of a show, and he at the end he goes, "Hey Josh, good to see you again," and you'd be like, "This guy's older. This doesn't feel right." And so that's what I'm talking about, that little voice in your head or those little hairs on your neck. And so in a weird way, to me, when John was developing this, it spoke to me like, so we can protect people, because no one was really, certainly everybody was looking out for me. This is just fan mail. But at the end of the day, I would have liked someone to check all of it before I opened it, because when you really look back, I shouldn't have been opening that blindly, because who knows what could have been in there. And in a sense, that relates to what's going on the web right now. When my niece is surfing the web, she could be exposed to anything. And, and quite honestly, a very similar situation where there's an older gentleman who's chatting with her online, right? And saying something, "Hey, let's meet up. Hey, something inappropriate. Here's a picture of myself." So technology wasn't there yet when I was a kid, but in a way I was already experiencing something like that. And luckily it never went too far. But so when John had this developed, it really spoke to me, and it triggered something. I said, wait, you mean we can use this to protect people, right? Particularly children online. So basically, I spearheaded the idea of, okay, let's start developing this further. Let's market it. And that's where it took off. And so we started with text, and then we progressed, picked up quite a few clients. We were very early to the space. User-generated content and moderating it online wasn't even a thing at that point. So we really were early by accident, and then started moderating videos and images and sort of both programmatically using computers, artificial intelligence, and human teams. And knock on wood, we've reached a point now where we have a very large human team and a very large client base, and we work with quite a few Fortune 500 companies, keeping their platform safe. So it turned out that it's awesome when you can have a job that was something that started with a good from a good place, right? It wasn't about making money. It was about protecting people online. But if you can make money and do that, and be successful, that's a gift.
Absolutely. And I had, I can't think of his name now, but I had the founder of iPredator on the show. And he is a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and he, talks to people about being safe on the web. And yeah, yours was through snail mail. Now it's via email and all these things. But it's a double-edged sword. I remember when I was still teaching that when kids went into the school library and they had to do a report on breast cancer, this was 10 years ago probably, they were blocked because the word breast was there. When they put in something on marijuana, they were blocked because marijuana was one of those. And of course, you've taken it to the way next level. But it's wonderful that you're providing such an amazing service. And hey, the icing on the cake, of course, is the business model and generating revenue. But the reason behind it and why you started it is speaks volumes to who you and your and John are as people. And I have to ask you, when we talk about this, because you were opening up your own mail, what do parents need to know about keeping their children safe online?
It's a great question, because there's a fine line between helicopter parenting, right, and pushing your child away, and fostering a healthy online experience and overseeing it. And the honest answer is, I think each parent has to find their comfort zone. I don't know that there's a clear answer. I think certainly, there's a psychologist we work with. He happens to be a dear friend, but also gets involved with Web Purify and helps us write articles and things. His name is Dr. Adam Pletter, and he has a website called iParent 101. And he basically gives classes on how to parent kids in the digital age. And he talks about the fact that parents are basically immigrants to the digital world. They just showed up. They don't quite understand it or know it. And so there's a lot of learning, I think, that goes into being a parent for a young person online. So the first step is to understand, what can you do or can't you do on TikTok, right? What can you do or can't you do on Facebook? You have to know what's on your child's computer before you can advise or protect, right? I mean, on a very basic level, obviously letting your child know they shouldn't be interacting with people who are not their friends, who they don't know, right? Letting them know that they, by all means, should never meet somebody who in person who they met on the web, unless if it seemed like a comfortable situation, then a parent would accompany them. But even that's quite dangerous. Limiting screen time. There's a whole bunch of tools, and there's contracts that you can sign with your child about their screen time and controlling how often they're on the web. But honestly, the thing that scares me the most in our business, because we do a lot of moderation of video content for all kinds of platforms, is the amount of times you'll see a minor streaming, recording themselves, but there's nobody there, right? Where's the question you always ask is, where's your mom? Where's your dad? And sometimes you want to bang on the screen because you're watching this in real time and you're going, Mom, where are you? Right? Like, because typically, or I shouldn't say typically, but unfortunately, sometimes that minor is engaging with people online who are encouraging inappropriate behavior. And it's really dangerous because that behavior is fed by the fact that more people will watch. So there's this reward system when you're streaming. The more viewers, the better you feel about yourself, right? I'm getting attention, right? And so when someone says, hey, do this, right? You want to do that because that's what you're being asked by your audience. And somehow when you do it, more people show up. And that's petrifying because you've got a young person who doesn't understand the boundaries, doesn't understand necessarily what's appropriate and not, putting on a show for strangers. That's petrifying to me. And that's where we come in. That's where we're moderating these engagements. That's where we're checking to make sure that this is, that they're not being coaxed to do something inappropriate. We're checking the chats and the text. And again, that's with humans and AI, and there's a bunch of different ways to tackle this. But it's really scary out there. I have a 3-year-old son, and I'm petrified of his experience on the web. And I think I'm more concerned than most because of what I do for a living. I've seen the darkest side of what's out there, and I'm aware how prevalent it is. And that's even scarier. I think a lot of parents simply are blind to it. They don't quite know how dangerous it is for their daughter to be streaming at 2 a.m. while they're sleeping, right? Or all their girlfriends are over and they think it's funny to do some kind of dance, right? It's not harmless. It's actually really, there's some really dangerous people out there. And those people are trained in the art of manipulating young people to do what they want online. Things that are super, that you, on the face of it, if you're a naive young person, you may not recognize. Things like, can you touch your toes? Things like, can you do a split, right? These are not harmless requests. This is an older person who's asking a young person to do something extremely inappropriate, but the young person has no concept. And even if they do, they may do it just to gain more views. So it's scary out there.
Yeah, views and followers. And you bring up a good point, because there's an old saying that, a little knowledge can be dangerous, but in your case, you have a lot of knowledge and you know the dangers because you know the reality. And now I remember his name, Dr. Nuccitelli, who does iPredator, says the same things, but I love your thoughts about, contracts with the kids, limiting screen time and finding the balance and being honest enough to say there is no definitive answer. And I know that you were very early in this space. But what obstacles did you encounter when you first started your business?
I think the obstacle we encountered from a sales standpoint was when we were communicating with potential clients, they didn't recognize how important this space was. And it's we're not showing them how to make money, right? They don't it's a cost center for them. They have to pay to have this service, right? What they don't recognize is if they don't have this service, their brand is in a lot of trouble. But it's hard to convey that until they have a problem or a fire, right? So the other challenge was, and this has definitely resolved itself over the years, who do you reach out to? And so when you would call someone, they wouldn't even understand user-generated content. Yeah, I know we let people chat on our platform, but we keep an eye on it and check it occasionally. Now, most brands, it's very easy. There's a trust and safety person on a team for each company. Their actual job is trust and safety advisor, trust and safety supervisor, trust and safety, whatever it may be. In that space, that is now a role at every company, right? And so that's who we call and that's who we communicate, and we all speak the same language. So it's amazing to think that role didn't even exist when we started, and now companies have recognized how important it is. But at the time, we didn't even know how to convey the dangers. And again, they saw it as a cost center, so they weren't particularly interested. And then typically what would happen is we'd warn them and say, hey, listen, this is a pretty dangerous platform. It's going to and typically once people recognize what they can get away with on a platform, it all goes downhill, right? Everybody jumps on and they realize it's like kids on a playground with no supervision, right? Like sooner or later, it's going to get out of control, right? And so, we unfortunately had to wait for that to happen. And then they would come to us and say, hey, remember you talked about helping us with this. Can you do it now? Right. And you'd be like, well, it's spun out of control, but we can try. So I think sales was challenging from my perspective.
Yeah. So, it's important for people to know it's not these things, this path to success is never easy, and it's often fraught with obstacles and difficulties. So it's great that you were able to get in that space, see what the problem was, and you said it resolved itself. I want to switch now to something, I know you from camp, and I hope I'm right. I think that did you have a relative, a grandfather, or somebody who was involved in camping?
I did, yeah. I had a grandfather who owned a day camp in Saddle River, New Jersey, called Knight's Day Camp. Right. So, and it was a huge camp. And so, yes, I've always been around camp as a kid. I always loved it, and obviously went to Deer Mountain Day Camp. So it's kind of in my blood. And at one point, when I was pursuing careers, one of the careers I actually was, I spent the summer actually working under an owner of a camp. It's called Camp Elmwood.
That was Jeff, what's Jeff's last name?
Yeah, Ackerman. Yes. Jeff Ackerman. That's impressive.
Yes.
Jeff Ackerman, I kind of shadowed him for a summer with the idea of actually partnering with him on the camp. Right. And it ended up not working out, but that was a career path I actually was interested in. So I've always been very open to something that piqued my interest and playing it out and then getting an answer, right? And then, being like, I guess this maybe this wasn't for me. And camp was a perfect example where on the surface of it, it was like, wow, you're around kids. It's a lot of fun. And then when you shadow Jeff and you realize, wait, you have to certify with the ACA, the American Camping Association, and you have to make sure your toilets are to the proper standard, and you have to clean this, and you have to sign insurance forms, and you have to keep this on file in the nurse's office. It wasn't so fun anymore, right? And so I think I was discouraged by that. But I've always been jumping in and figuring it out, and then being the first to say, maybe this isn't for me. Because your voice, you kind of know. There's that voice that tells you this may not be right.
Not enough people listen to the good voice, and you do. But I know that camp is still near and dear to your heart. So tell us about your connection with United in Harmony, what that's all about.
Sure, yeah. So United in Harmony was, I'm so grateful that I found them. But when I moved to Los Angeles, I think I got sucked up into the LA lifestyle with, going out all the time and hanging out with fancy friends and fancy dinners. And a child therapist was my neighbor at this apartment building I was living in. And I said to her, I need to do something good. I need to get back to my roots. I feel like I've kind of lost my way a little bit. What's a great volunteer opportunity? And again, me just being open and just saying, I'll try something. And she said, well, I happen to, work with this United in Harmony. And United in Harmony, what they do is they're a nonprofit that does a winter and summer camp, both sleepaway camps for inner city kids. And it's really the homeless population that we serve, or a low income population. But majority are homeless from various shelters. And I went there for the first summer. I had no idea what I was getting into. And I was really angry at her because she didn't come. She wasn't able to come that summer. So I literally show up with my backpack. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? And, I'm going to be staying there for 6 nights. And it didn't take 24 hours for me to be like, I will be back here for the rest of my life. It was the most incredible program. These kids all showed up from all the shelters, some of them with garbage bags, with their clothes in them, coming from a really rough situation. And they get to camp and all they do is have fun. And that's all camp is about. It's not really about rules. It's about just be free and have a blast. And so over the years, I became a member of the board of United in Harmony and got more involved on the business side of it, fundraising and whatnot. But my passion was the programming, coming up with new crazy hiking ideas for summer camp, new crazy nighttime activities like boat build, all kinds of fun things. So yeah, my passion for camp tied in with my passion for helping kids and working with kids. So there's definitely a theme here.
Excellent. So what is next? I'm afraid to ask. What is next for Josh Buxbaum?
It's a great question. I think I really enjoy where I'm at. I have a 3-year-old son, and being a dad has become, to be honest, the first year I wanted to give him back.
Been there, done that twice.
Yeah. I don't know how people do it twice, but now, after the first year, and now that he's becoming a little person, and in a scary way, he reminds me a lot of me.
Yep.
Just the other day, I sneezed, and I heard him at the other end of the house sneeze like me, but made fun of how loud it was. He went, ah! And I was like, oh my God, I have a little me.
Yeah.
But now we're at that point where I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying teaching him things, spending time with him. And so I think I'm excited for the dad part of my life. And then I'm excited to see where Web Purify goes. We're growing at a really awesome pace and doing a great thing and a great service. So I'm looking forward to just growing with the company and seeing who else we can help.
Outstanding. Well, Josh Buxbaum, thank you so much for joining us today. Took us 30 years, and for sharing your passion and your service to the community via Web Purify and your work with United in Harmony. To the viewers, this is Mark Hoberman thanking you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. Catch us Monday nights at 9 p.m. EST on E360 TV, on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire. Remember, we're 24/7 on the Lighting the Educational Flame YouTube channel. Have a great day. Josh, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. To contact Mark Hoberman, email him at info@gradesuccess.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame.